welcome to Second School. Growing up in a cult can kind of mess you up, so listen to two middle-aged men go back to school and relearn how to live their lives and maybe have a couple laughs along the way. No, none of that is anything like I had it in my head.
This is great. We should just cut that and play that at the beginning of every episode.
Yeah, I agree. I got it in one. First take.
100%.
First draft, last draft, get it out the door. That's a quote from L. Ron Hubbard. That was his motto for writing. He said, first draft, last draft, get it out the door. He never did another draft. And that's why all of his writings were so good.
This has been a great intro. I applaud the efforts.
And the intro is still going. Isn't that amazing? This is still part of it.
Okay. Then great.
And now we've now stopped reading our scripts for the intro. That was all the script.
That was all planned. Every laugh.
And every laugh. I think next time I'm going to script some audience applause. I'm going to script in some applause, maybe a standing ovation.
I mean, do we have
for
to
the
script
audio medium?
It? Because if you're listening, they've already started clapping themselves, like on the bus.
That's a good point.
So I don't know if we had to add. Yeah, they're going to do it anyway, naturally. They'll be like, hey, that's that YouTube guy and his English friend.
Oh, I see. I was going to make the opposite joke.
I out-humbled you.
Isn't that always the contest in the organization, to out-humble people? Hey, anyway, my name is Jake, a.k.a. Alt-Worldly, a.k.a. Jake Vaughn, a.k.a. JV, a.k.a. the JV Club, and I'm joined with my good buddy Ben Ford.
Hello. I didn't pick any weird extra names or anything, so I can't AKA myself. Other than
your channel is just called the Ben Ford channel.
Yeah, is it? I haven't even actually made it yet. As you're listening to this, it doesn't exist. But
that's right. You made a little intro though that I've seen.
Yes,
it's just your name.
Yeah. Well, actually, hopefully by the time you're listening to this, it is available. But as we're recording,
that's the thing.
It is not.
Last time in episode 0, which is our origin stories, go back and listen to that if you want to know anything about the psychopaths that are rambling on right now. But yeah, I think we talked about our stuff as if it already existed. Like we talked about, you probably know Ben from his interview with Lloyd in the little documentary. I don't think I said it in such a
condescending way.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I thought you're probably right though. To be fair, it's probably
him and his
nothing.
Friends.
It's not going to get any views. No one cares about some Bethel dude.
That little video. Ben and his little videos. Hey, how are you doing?
I am excellent. I got boosted today, so I'm feeling maximum protection from all of the strains. And spoke to a good friend today, so that was nice. And actually,
any other
pretty good.
Close friends that you're talking to currently?
No. I'm currently in like a work appointment. It's like a employee-employer situation.
This is like a meeting.
Yes. But I look forward to finally making an American friend one day. That'd be nice.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to making an English friend one day. Listen, this is a focused show about serious issues.
Absolutely.
Facing the XJW community.
What's the theme today, Jake?
The theme today, I believe we talked about last time, is student talk / the very namesake of our show, Second School.
Absolutely.
So we thought it'd be fun to talk about experiences doing student talks. And maybe just the general meeting structure. Not the structure of the general meeting, but the meeting structure generally.
Like, maybe even before we get into that, I want to talk about the room itself. Because it's such a strange room. Like, lots of congregations...
You mean the second school room?
I mean the second school room. Do you guys call it the second school as well?
Yeah, we do.
I'm glad, because if you didn't, you should have mentioned that before we named the podcast.
I would never agree to these terms.
But It's just a weird room, isn't it? It's like sometimes the cake room for like the CO or whatever, and sometimes it's like the ministry room for after the meeting, and sometimes it's the naughty telling off room. Library, the elders meeting room. It's just like an all-purpose room. But it's also like just got all these weird vibes. I think because it's all-purpose, like...
Yes, it's a little haphazard and a little more dingy.
100%.
Like you always have to kind of set up the chairs beforehand. Like, oh right,
oh yeah,
second school, we got to do that. And then in our hall, it was always in the library, so there was kind of the nice aesthetic of all these old books, although not so old anymore because they threw out a lot of the really old ones.
Why would they do that?
Did you not hear about this? A few years ago, there was a mandate.
To clear off
branch to clear off all the older publications.
And you actually had some of those because they were like really old.
Now the hall that I was in, before I left, I think they did not abide by this mandate because they still have some pretty old stuff. They still have like some studies in the scripture kind of business up there on the top shelf. So they must have had some rebel who didn't follow the direction.
Some poor literature servant is getting nailed this week.
Probably. They're monitoring my every move.
Actually, who looks after that? There's like a weird rule, isn't there? Isn't it like the service overseer? I'm trying to remember. Someone is responsible for the
a specific
library?
Assignment for the library?
Yeah, there is.
I wouldn't have thought about that. I always just thought it was more decorative.
No, someone is really responsible for it because I think there's something written somewhere that the publishers have to have access to, like study tools or something, and like so the library's like a part of that. And so, like, if someone said, I want this weird thing from not that long ago, maybe like a 90s article or something, it should be available to
like
them.
A bound volume or something.
Yeah. So most nowadays, I think people are moving just to like say, here's my tablet, use that. But for years, like us growing up, it was the library that was the tool that did that. So they should have access to certain stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting. When I was growing up, I always liked going to the second school after the meeting because I really liked old books and like old newspapers and stuff. Like I always liked going to the library and finding like old timey looking books. So like I would read like the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew or like I would
in an actual library. Right.
In an actual library. But that's why I liked the second school at the Kingdom Hall is because they had all of these old crazy books that, had weird pictures in them. And the language was so different than, like the current publication. So I always thought it was really fascinating. But it also seemed more like a museum of sorts. Like it never seemed like anybody would actually read that stuff for any reason.
That's really interesting because I didn't realize that you were so nerdy. Like I went to the second school and were like, who on earth would be interested in reading all of this nonsense? Like I don't read for fun. So I went to the second school after the meeting.
I forgot you're kind of like dull.
Well, some say cool, others say dull.
Dim-witted.
Clever.
Incurious.
Fascinated. So I went to the second school. I remember actually, first little tidbit for you.
Tidbit. This is Ben's tidbit corner.
Tidbit number one, the theme. Guys. I went to the second school and I started. This is the first time I think I got told off, like officially from elders. I didn't actually get told off that much, so the list is probably like a handful. But I remember this time.
Yeah.
I was maybe like 7, I want to say. 8, like very young. And I arranged for all the kids in the meeting. I say arrange, I just like grabbed them. We went into the second school after the meeting and held our own meeting. So I would like be the chairman and like introduce people, and they would come up to the podium in the second school, and we would just natter on like about nonsense and just make up stuff.
I did this exact thing. Exact thing.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you get told off for it?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just viewed as cute, but I think the concern was that we were taking these very fragile old publications and maybe not being super careful with them. So that might have that might have gotten us in a little bit of trouble. But I think in general, they just thought it was, oh, they're playing meeting after the meeting.
See, that's what I thought it would look like. But actually, so we didn't even touch the books because, again, not nerdy. But we just used the room. But like, we got told off for like holding it was basically like they viewed it like apostasy. They were like, no, you can't be holding a meeting. We've had the real meeting. This is not a meeting. And I'm like,
right, like that KM article that came out, like you can't have your own separate books.
It was exactly like that. And I just was like, these guys are no fun. Like, we had a great time. I think I made someone say the prayer, and it was like all fun and cute. That's my earliest memory in a second school, is holding that meeting and then being told off for it. So,
well, now this is conjuring up a different memory, which is one thing that I liked to do. I don't know if you ever did this, was to have like a big family worship night with like a bunch of the young people from the congregation or various congregations around. And it was always like also a way to be like, oh, if there's a girl I have a crush on, I can invite her, and it's just like a spiritual event, and I look like a cool
observe each other at the event.
That's right. We can observe each other in a group setting. So I was like doing that, but one time I had one person that was like, oh, I'm not sure you're allowed to do that, because that's like, isn't it like having your own meeting? It wasn't an elder or anything. I was like, no, what are you talking about? I never even considered that anybody would have a problem with it, but I guess some people are really concerned about even having the semblance of an outside meeting. But, what is family worship if not a meeting that's unmonitored in your own home?
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I've noticed actually more and more since I've left, and like just looking at Reddit or whatever and seeing comments, is that the religion basically is... Obviously, it's a different beast in every congregation, depending on the body of elders. But also, it's a different beast until you kind of learn, like, the rules. And I don't really know when I think Beth will really help with that. But I think I was on the way there anyway, of, like, when you can turn around to the elder and say, no, like, and that's totally okay. And the times you have to go, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. Like, that took a while. But, like, reading comments and stuff, I see that, like... an elder said something to someone, and obviously most they're saying is dumb, but like sometimes it's the actual rules and sometimes it's rules they've just made up. And if they've just made it up, you have like the absolute right to go back to them and be like, no, I'm not doing that, you're wrong. And if they do anything, you can get them in trouble, and it's great, and just get the CO in.
Because then they're enforcing their own opinion.
100%. Yeah. But knowing, like, getting the confidence levels to that point where you can turn around and say, no, this is okay, or this is fine. Wow, that's like, then the religion changes its whole concept, I think.
I think being around elders is helpful there, because that's something that they do, is they'll be like, actually, if you look at this letter, boom, it says this is the rule. And like, if you're aware of that stuff as a publisher, like, oh, there was a questions from readers about this in
questions from readers. I loved questions from readers.
That came up a lot in the Spanish congregation, because there was a lot of like little cultural things that there was some question about, like, oh, is this okay? Is this considered, pagan? Is this all right? And there was always people who were like, oh, this questions from readers this year. You can't do this.
Yeah.
So
it's almost,
and there's always little things like that.
It's basically better than the Bible, I would say, because like the Bible, they can be like, no, that's not what that means, and change it.
Oh yes.
But the questions from readers is in like, sorry, but it's in pure English, like very
modern
clear.
English. The Queen's English.
Yes, thank you. Yes, the Queen's English, and is like indisputable in what it means. So if you've got a question from readers, that will trump a Bible verse, no matter how clear.
100%.
It's so interesting.
Because it's like, well, this is the canonical explanation of this scriptural principle.
100%.
So unfortunately,
unfortunately, the way you're
have your own
that,
opinion on what that means. Yeah.
But anyway, I think my tidbit has led us astray, and I apologize wholeheartedly.
That doesn't sound like us. Thank you for your apology. I don't accept it, but I appreciate the gesture. Let's talk about maybe experiences giving student talks, because this is an interesting part of, witness culture. And one thing that I want to clarify. I want to come out and I want us to be on the right side of this issue.
Clarify.
Because I've seen a lot of people say that they've gotten rid of the theocratic ministry school. Not true.
No. Who has been, is it these apostates again, Jake?
It is, as a matter of fact.
What have I told you about
But,
them?
we're like good ones who know what's up.
Yeah.
There's bad ones who suck, who say bad things. No, it's not even bad ones. But, like, I know that, maybe I'll cut this out, but Lloyd said it on his channel.
What, the theocratic ministry school is dead?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say
Well,
that.
I mean, it depends how you're viewing that sentence.
In a very technical sense, it's not called that anymore.
Yes.
It's called,
so in a very technical sense, you could argue that it is dead because they killed it and replaced it. But in real life, it's the same thing.
Because what, is it the Living as Christians? Or, no, that's the last part of the meeting. What's these names all...
The Christian Life and Ministry School.
The Christian Life and Ministry meeting is the overall
isn't
thing.
it the Christian Life and Ministry School?
Oh, yeah, maybe that's right.
I think that's right.
Let me pull up a workbook. But yeah, but there is still student talks that have public speaking, points
Things
that you are assigned. And there is still, so all that stuff is still there. I just wanted to correct this.
And in fact, there is they don't do it anymore, but you get a specific point to work on. Before, you would have to go up with your book and that would be marked and they would assign you another one. But you still do that. You're still meant to do that now, but it's just yourself. So like in the teaching brochure, it's got all the things for you to date the time you've worked on it. But like literally no one is doing that. But technically, that's what you should still be doing to like work through the points.
I think it didn't help that like this new book kind of came out around the time that the restrictions, like COVID restrictions, started to take place. So it felt like...
No. Really? That can't be true.
This new book, I think so.
Are you spreading fake news? I don't think
that might
that's
be
true.
Fake news. Here's true news. It's called Apply Yourself to the Field Ministry.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's the middle bit of the Christian Life and Ministry School meeting workbook.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Great branding. You got treasures from God's word. You got to apply yourself to the field ministry
yellow.
Living as Christians.
And that's red.
You're so right. It's yellow and it has a little
the first one's gray?
picture of a wheat.
Is it grey, yellow?
Gray.
Oh, boom. Look at me. It's like I only left a few months ago. So what was your point in bringing all of this up, Jay?
Why did I bring that? Oh, well, I just wanted to correct that because I hear people say it all the time and it really bothers me. It's like, this isn't true. They still do student talks. They still get counsel points.
Yes.
Don't lie to me.
Yeah.
Jacob Von Kreitz.
Did you ever get...
YouTuber extraordinaire.
I'm just moving on because we've clarified it. I've been clarified. Did you ever get from these points that, like, it's in the second school even, counseled that you didn't do the thing that they wanted you to do? Like, do you know what I mean?
Explain that a little bit. No, I don't
let me rephrase that in the Queen's English.
Yeah, thank you.
When one is in the second school and you are called upon to give your part, you have a specific counsel point. It could be accurate reading, or it could be any of the
Scriptures
other...
properly applied.
That's a great one. And then you get off the platform, the nerves, the Holy Spirit's leaving you because you've come off the platform.
That's right.
And the counselor gets up and they say, Jake, you've done really good. We see that you've prepared a lot. Well, you're working on accurate reading and I felt like you could have done better here, 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 and here. So we're going to ask you to work on it again. Did you ever have stuff like that?
So, yes.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Fuck you. And no, that definitely did happen. I will say I was lucky to have more tactful ministry school teachers. Like now the counsel is very specifically, you don't tell them if they did a bad job from the platform. Like you try and focus on stuff they did well. I think that's more the direction they're given now.
I don't think that's
Maybe I'm
true.
wrong.
I think, again, I'm going to fake news you again, I think.
Well, it just always goes back and forth because every year when they would put out the instructions for the ministry school, it'd always be like, one year it would be like, frank but tactful counsel can be given from the platform.
Yeah, I think that's it.
But then, there'd be another year that'd be like, keep it upbuilding, focus on what the student did well. So it just always seemed to flip-flop. And I always seem to have people who were like, generally focused on what you did well. But my grandfather was the school overseer in my congregation for most of my life, and he basically always assigned me variations of you read too fast. And it certainly has nothing to do with the fact that I'm in my 70s and don't hear as well as I used to. It's definitely just you reading too fast. And so he always assigned me variations of that point. And if he felt I read too fast, he would say it from the platform. So what about you? Were you, a bad student who had to be counseled a lot because you sucked, or?
Good question. I don't think ever, if we're limiting the question to the, funnily enough, if we're limiting the question to the Christian Life and Ministry School or the Theocratic Ministry School, I don't think I ever got bad counsel. No, I don't think ever. I was in congregations where it was given, like they gave like very clear, strong, bad counsel from the platform, and in the congregations where you would never get bad counsel ever. But no, I always got just kind of. I think everyone was fairly happy with me. Oh, the only time, this is such a weird British thing. I got counselled a couple of times. It's the only negative thing I can think of, and I'm still a bit sour about it, if I'm being honest. That when I say, I'm sure people have noticed already, but when I say free, I say free like 1, 2, 3, but it should be 1, 2, 3. But I say it with an F, basically, is what I do. And it's just weird.
That's kind of like a regional British thing.
Yes, that's what I said the whole time. But they're like, no. If you're going to read the Bible, you've got to read it properly. And I'm like, but I'm not.
God put that TH in there for a reason.
Yeah, it's that kind of vibe, and it was really annoying. But when I got to Germany, because I got counselled on it not counselled, but like people would mention it. When I got to Germany, they were like, "Oh, this is great," and I love the fact that you say like free, because that makes it, because everyone wasn't. This was in my English congregation, obviously.
Okay.
And they would, they assumed I was kind of like trying to make it easier for people to understand. And then people who struggled saying the TH, because that's really difficult for Germans, they would start saying, I could just say F whenever there's a TH, and they would sound fine.
Oh, no.
And it was great. And everyone was like really happy, because it's like, oh, this dude's actually like helping us. But I'm just doing, what I've always done.
Yeah, you're just talking like a...
But it's true, like, if you're really struggling with the TH, just say an F. Like, it's not amazing, but if you're really struggling and it's like a problem when you're learning the language, just give up and say an F.
Bathroom.
No, not everywhere. Sometimes you have to say it. But
it's over fair.
All right. But sometimes it's like really easy. Like over there, I find... But sometimes... Like 3 is such a your mouth is moving all over the place,
I guess.
So it's just like, so whenever I say, oh yeah, it was free, they're like, was it free or £3? Ugh. So
3.
Yeah, exactly. That was the only thing I ever really got counselled on that I can remember.
Wow.
Because obviously,
I'm really glad we did this segment, or Ben could brag about how he never did anything wrong, and
never
told him what a good
and then when I
did.
was an elder, giving counsel, that was a whole different.
The only thing he did wrong was actually helpful to the German community.
I feel like I'm in a job interview. My weakness really became a strength in Germany.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's really funny. Yeah, for my student parts, I really barely ever got counsel. In my public talks too, the counsel I got the most, or not the most, but that stands out to me, that somebody said, like, you give such good talks, you touch your face too much. Apparently, I was like rubbing my chin or something. I don't know. It was like a nervous tick I had or something.
Wow.
But I don't know.
Oh, now that you say that, I did get counsel. That was probably the most recent counsel I got because it was shortly before I became an elder.
Well, until today, because I have some for you after the show.
And it was, I put my, when I'm talking, let me just remember it, where they were. Oh yeah, when I'm like on the platform or whatever, if I'm a little bit nervous, I put my hands behind my body and just like hold them there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I got counseled like it looks a bit weird, like where's his hands? And I was like, well, they haven't just disappeared. They're behind my body. What's wrong with you?
They're babies who haven't learned object permanence. Like,
They're just
when you cover your face, I worry that you've left the room. I don't know what's happening.
They're just sitting there and they gasp. No, but apparently it looked weird. So I actually, because I was a very good street W, I tried at least with the counsel, even with the free and with the hands, I always tried to apply it. So like the hands I got out of doing, I didn't realize I was doing it. And I would just make a point whenever they tried to go back there, I would just put them on the rostrum instead.
Yeah, I tried to really apply that stuff too, because and it's funny, I feel like the emphasis on reading slower and maybe speaking slower, it was helpful when I got to Spanish, because then you have to slow down because, you have to really consider everything you're saying. And it got to the point where when I came back, I noticed that my default setting was very slow, and I still feel like that to this day. Like when I edit my videos, I'm irritated because I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking so slow. What am I doing? But it just is how I naturally speak now. I just speak like a slow moron who doesn't know what he's trying to say, as opposed to a fast.
I wanted to linger there in the silence, but you.
I know.
You caught it.
I couldn't allow it.
I was just gonna how long can I linger here?
I can extend it
like a moron. Silence.
Now you said the word "fostrum" earlier, and that was interesting to me. Okay, that still is weird.
Oh, is it?
What's a rostrum? Is that like
maybe
a podium?
I've made it up? Yeah. I'm gonna have Google this to make sure that I'm not.
Yeah, look it up and see if that's a regional thing.
Oh, it is absolutely a term. And is it British? I don't think it is, because it normally tells me if it's British. So, yeah. Let me have a look.
Rostrum. What the?
Any kind of platform for a speaker. Boom.
Well, we would always say podium. Like I've never heard anywhere.
No, but podium. If you were gonna drill down to it, a podium, isn't that like something you stand on to become higher than the audience? No.
Well, you might be right.
Oh well, I've googled it and it does look like. I mean, I understand both, obviously, but
lectern. But yeah, I've never heard rostrum.
Rostrum
in my entire American life.
Okay, then it's safe to assume that that's a British term then.
I think so. Now, Merriam-Webster is saying it's an ancient Roman platform for public orators. So,
did I mention I was in a Latin congregation?
That's right. We talked about the Queen's English, and now we're talking about like
Caesar's Latin.
Caesar's English.
Yeah, okay, so back to the second school. So we've been counselled. I want to know if you can remember either your worst or your best thing you ever did in the second school. No, let's do that. Best moment in the second school, worst moment in the second school. And we're talking about the room itself.
Yeah, okay. Just the room. So even outside of the context, giving a talk
100%.
Or something like that.
Best experience in that room, worst experience in that room.
That's interesting. Now, I'm immediately frustrated. By the way, this is a tangent, but we didn't even explain for non-JWs what
any of this is
talking about.
You're absolutely right.
We didn't explain the idea.
As soon as we were rambling at the beginning, they turned it off. It was safe to assume that no one.
That's true.
Even the JWs
only
aren't
true believers stuck around. Yeah. Oh my God. Well.
No. Let's briefly just explain what this.
If you've somehow made it, a half hour into this, out of sheer I don't know, self-flagellation. You felt the need to punish yourself.
They're
by
actually
listening to something
paralyzed
that
in their
makes no
car.
sense.
Someone should call 911 for them.
Trapped.
They're just
If
stuck.
you were fumbling for your phone to stop the podcast and got into a car accident, so it's still playing, and it's our fault,
Then I apologize, but also we will
sorry.
explain the terms for you.
But now you have context. Yeah. So help us explain
Yeah,
what
so
we're talking about.
let's start with the second school itself. Maybe that should have been right at the beginning. So it's a room inside a Kingdom Hall. Kingdom Hall is a church for Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't like saying that, but that's what it is.
Right.
The second school, you have the main auditorium where almost all of the organized events for the meeting will happen in the main room. That's the big one with maybe 100 seats, 150, this kind of size. And additionally, some Kingdom Halls, it's hard to describe without saying second school. You have a room in that building where there's maybe only 15 seats or so. And in that room, certain things take place, like extra activities. The second school is, oh my goodness, this is so
It's
difficult.
like an overflow room. Yeah, I think you made a big mistake by starting by trying to explain the second school.
I'm going to say it's a
just
mistake for you asking me to explain it.
Well, that's obvious now. And I do bear a lot of responsibility for
100%.
thinking you could explain a simple concept. No, I'm totally kidding. It is weird. It is weird because you first have to explain, like, okay, so part of the worship for the midweek meeting of Jehovah's Witnesses is a kind of demonstrations of the ministry, of the door-to-door ministry that they take part in
And
every
talks.
week. And talks. So there is a Bible reading, just reading a passage of the Bible like you would expect at any church. But you are given counsel points. So you are given things to work on by an elder who is the school overseer. He oversees all of these student parts.
What kind of things do you have to work on?
So you would have to work on things like accurate reading. If you are reading the Bible, you might have to work on pacing, on enthusiasm, to make sure that you're not just reading it in a monotone, pronouncing words correctly, things like that. Now
So it's more
there are
academic
also
than spiritual things to work on.
yes,
Okay.
these are more academic things. And like if you're giving a talk, if you're assigned a subject like explain how we know that 1914 is when Christ's kingdom started ruling on earth. You might be, you have like 5 to 7 minutes maybe to deliver a talk on this subject. You might be assigned something that has more to do with like scriptures properly applied. So using scriptures to back up your main arguments, things like that.
Okay.
And then the ladies, it used to be just women, but now men can give these talks too, where they give like a demonstration of the door-to-door ministry where one person pretends to be the person in the ministry and the other person is the householder, and they just play act a scenario like, okay, this week we're going to concentrate on what if somebody had a certain kind of objection to something. They say that they're not interested, or what if somebody says they have their own religion? How would you overcome this potential conversation obstacle? So that's part of that is all constitutes the ministry school or the
Christian life and
applying the field ministry, something.
it's yellow. It's
Hanging out in the field ministry, the yellow section.
apply yourself to the field ministry.
Apply yourself to the
that?
field ministry. So yes, that's it. That's all the thing. But because a lot of congregations have maybe over 100 people in them, and you want to give as many people opportunities to participate as possible, there is an overflow.
Whoa. I think actually there's a rule. I think in the Elders book somewhere it says that publishers should be given an assignment every like 3 months or something. So that's
Now, is that true? Because that is almost certainly not always enacted.
No, I don't think it ever happens. But there is somewhere a written specific.
That's how it
guidance.
should be.
Yeah, and that's officially why what you're about to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good bit of context. Yeah, because participation is a big part of the witness meetings, and they want you to be involved regularly. So it's common to have an assignment on the school every couple of months, right? But it wouldn't be something that happens every week, probably. Unless you're in a very small congregation or you're substituting in for somebody who's not there.
Oh, can you imagine?
But anyway, there's the main auditorium, and then there's an overflow room in the back that's maybe it's a library or it's just some extra seating or something. But they convert that into the second school, and it functions as a miniature. I didn't say that right. Let's try that again. Miniature school. I added in a few extra R's that first time. Basically, yeah, it's just the same school but for a smaller audience. And yeah, the vibes are just kind of weird because you're just in a much more confined environment. You're at a smaller podium or rostrum, if you will, and you can see all the 10 people staring at you right in front of your face. It's almost a little bit more pressure in the back school sometimes.
Yeah,
and I guess it also depends.
You just sparked in me these awkward memories because it's a really weird room. So because it's like this overflow room, like if you're disfellowshipped or you don't really want to be there, you end up sitting in that room often for the main meeting. So you don't go into the main big room.
Oh, yeah.
You'll sit in the little
That's
room.
another thing.
So then if you have a second school, all of these people from the big room walk into the little room and you're kind of trapped in there and you're like, oh my goodness. And then you kind of have to sit in this and go through this whole school in this little room. And then they leave again and you're kind of back to your, but also if you're in that little room, like the singing is weird. Everyone's like singing, like whispering and.
Right. Because you can hear everybody's voices very distinctly
like 4 people
and individually.
In the room.
Yeah. It's and we should also say, a lot of times disfellowship people will sit back there. So people who are disfellowshipped but maybe trying to get reinstated because they're shunned, and it's a little awkward for everybody, for a shunned person to sit in the main hall, they might sit in the back school so they're not pestering the normies with their sinful presence.
Well, so tidbit number 2, Jake.
Ooh, Ben's tidbits.
Maybe everyone knows this because everyone's clever, but
Ben
I did
bits.
not. So there's no actual rule about where disfellowshipped people can sit.
No, there's no rule. It's just kind of a cultural
thing. So you can go in
thing.
and sit on the front row next to your family, and no one can possibly question it at all. It's like totally fine. It's viewed or it's made or it's written as a loving arrangement to have you sit in the back school or something just for your comfort because no one's allowed to speak to you. So it's going to be super awkward if people are like, oh, hi, you knew. And you're like, I'm just fellowshipped. And you just have to kind of
to be like, oh.
Yeah, and they just go, oh, and look at the ground and walk away. And you've got to do that 100 times. So it's kind of this awkward, like, no, you can sit wherever you want. It just depends how ashamed you want to be.
How unpleasant do you want your experience to be?
Yeah. So
no, that is true because I've heard people say like if you're disfellowshipped, you have to sit in the back. It's like, no, you don't have to sit in the back.
But it just always happens.
Most people do because it's they like to leave a little bit before the meeting's totally over, so they don't have the uncomfortable experience of somebody being like, oh, I've never seen you here before.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's because I'm disfellowshipped.
All right, Kylo Ren.
They turn into Batman. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we know what this room is. We know the kind of weird vibes it has. Oh, but before we jump out of this little segment, also, I think we did mention this before, but in this room is often where elders meetings will happen after the meeting.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it's also where, at least in my experience, that kind of turns often into like a kind of like not eating room, but like coffee and stuff could be there if like the circuit overseer is there or there's some like strangely special thing going on.
Right, like if pioneer meeting is going on during the circuit overseer visit or something like that.
Yeah.
There's construction going on at the hall. Yes, it's true.
So those are the kinds of events.
A real rumpus
in
room.
This little library of Jake's fantasy books.
That's right. One of my favorite old books are there.
Now we can jump back to the thing that is interesting. Now that I've listened to you ramble on with your definitions.
Jesus Christ. So the best and worst.
The best
things
and
we've
worst
done.
Things or moments that you've experienced in the second school or third school, because there could also, if you're in a crazy
I have
place,
heard tell.
Yeah.
I've heard tell of third schools. I've never experienced one for myself.
What were those moments for you? Let's start. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to specify. Let's have your best moment first.
I can't remember anything particularly exciting ever happening back there. I mean, no, I have good memories, playing meeting after the meeting, like with my little friends. Like we would always like play and stuff. So I remember that being a fun hangout room.
Okay.
But I don't have any specific events of like good things that happen there. I mean, like, what am I supposed to say? Like, have my first kiss back there or something?
Well, you could have a great memory like mine. My favorite memory in the little second school was I used to keep time. So I could bell people when they went overtime, and it was like the best thing ever.
Sure. They always had me sit in the front row if I did that. Very front row.
Oh, it was so much fun.
With a bell.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like you were watching the clock, and the second they went over, you were like ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
So maybe just explain what's happening to anyone.
Oh yeah, because the talks are supposed to be within a certain time limit. That's determined ahead of time. So, and they're very strict about that.
Yeah, you're 1 second over.
Being on time, that's one of the council points. So if you are. If it's a 5-minute talk and it hits that 5-minute mark on the timer, you're going to get dinged. Or if my grandfather's there, he's going to smack on the microphone with a pencil.
And but how degrading is that really? Like, imagine you're like 60 years old and you've been in,
it has to be terrible.
The organization for 60 years. And, you've brought hundreds of people into the organization, let's say, and you're 1 second over time on the point, because you're being polite or the other person's taking too long on your own assignment. And this little child starts binging you with a bell. Get off! Get off!
Hey, old lady. It's so undignified.
It's very strange. Like, strange.
Yeah, that whole culture of, like, you have to follow all the rules and do everything exactly right and be exactly on time. That all kind of reinforces the very like regimented control of the organization in a subtle way. And of course, it is good to be on time for things. And it's good that if, like, let's say in the workplace, if you're asked to give a presentation and it's asked to be a certain amount of time, it's good. It's good life skills. But when it's, dictating so much of your life and it infiltrates every single part of the organization, you can see how it creates a culture of like, very strict, abiding by the rules at all costs, and everybody really paying attention to people who don't follow the rules.
Yeah.
Because everyone's looking at the clock. Everyone's timing it in their head.
Yeah, 100%. And you also get like a feeling of this is definitely overtime. And then they like look for the kid and the kid isn't there. No one's going to bell them.
Yep.
But you're absolutely right. I think that the skills you learn in the second school or even in the main auditorium in the school, those skills are probably the most transferable to real life. Like giving presentations or eye contact when talking or in meetings, those kind of things. I've noticed even like at university, people are in their third year, they're about to graduate and they like can't give a presentation to save their life. Like they look awful and they're super nervous and you can tell and it's uncomfortable. So that kind of stuff is I mean, if you've got nothing else to do, then you're stuck in the organization, the second school.
Yeah,
probably the thing that I would sink the most time into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it still comes in handy. I think I'm, more confident in job interviews and giving presentations at work, which I have to do a lot because of doing that growing up and, giving some like impromptu as a substitute. That's all good stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Worst thing is interesting. That's an interesting question. I don't remember ever. I mean, I was a goody two shoes, mostly just because I was terrified of disappointing people and getting yelled at. So that it was not necessarily that I loved following rules. I was just terrified of breaking rules. So I don't remember ever doing anything bad. I mean, the only like bad thing that comes to mind is like just listening to bad talks and like having to endure
Oh my
bad
goodness.
talks. You know what I mean? Like having to listen to just absolute
What's the worst memory of
dog crap.
you being in this room, listening to all of the crappy people?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's probably the worst thing. I mean, one that we would reference forever, and now I see it online actually as a thing, was my sister was a student. She was the householder, and some kind of weird sister was giving the presentation.
Classic.
And it's all scripted, so she's given this, script she has to read ahead of time. And it's supposed to say sweetie, but the sister had written sweaty. So we always would call her sweaty. And now I see that online all the time as a joke, people saying sweaty instead of sweetie. And I think it started in the Grandview congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses about 15 years ago. But
funny.
yeah, it's funny, the absolute worst memories I have in the second school are actually associated with the book study, which for a while we had on Saturday mornings in the second school at the Kingdom Hall.
Oh my goodness.
Awful.
What have we
Worst.
stumbled
only
upon
did it-
here?
It was
Saturday
only
morning.
for a year.
Wait, is this before
Terrible.
or after ministry?
Before.
Before the ministry, you would go do the book study. Then you would go to the group.
Yeah, it would be the same room, obviously.
Okay.
So
You
your book study
sit through
group
the
was the same.
book study for an hour. Then
Yep.
they do the group for ministry. Then you go on ministry for at least an hour.
Got to go for at least an hour, and that's about all it ever was because everyone is so wiped out. After
Oh my
the book
goodness,
study
that's
being there early.
horrific.
Yeah.
On the plus
bad.
side, in those days, at least you got a Tuesday night or whatever free.
Yes,
Condensed
that
the
was
amount
nice.
of time, but you had to like go out of your way for stuff.
That's true. The worst, like during that year, in addition to it just being a miserable time to have the book study, the reader, the person reading from the publication, reading the paragraphs, we had a pretty shallow bullpen of readers, and one of our frequent readers, I wish I could remember his name. I think his name was Winston, which is
Don't know if you should be saying that.
well, I mean, pretty sure he's dead. So, dead or
Dying.
disappeared, living under a bridge somewhere. I don't know. He's kind of fallen off the face of the earth.
I feel really.
Yeah.
I feel more connected to him now than I do to you.
He had a horrific stutter. It was awful. It was awful. And, no fault of his own, but they wanted to use him. They wanted to make him feel included. I don't know if that helped anything. It seems to me that maybe the best way to make him feel comfortable would be to not put him in a position where he has to read in public for an hour.
This guy's struggling with this. Make him do it more.
Yeah, he'd probably do it every week. Huh? Yeah, so he would stutter terribly. It would take forever to get through the paragraphs, and he's sweating bullets the entire time. And that was a long year, let me tell you.
Yeah, that sounds.
That's my worst memories
Okay.
of being in the second school. What about you?
Well, now I feel way too bad. I'm trying to think of less bad. The two that I have two equally awful memories. I say I didn't get in trouble in much, but I guess these are like just the only times that keep coming up. One time I post this. This was in the days of G+. Do you remember Google Plus?
G+. Oh, yes, okay. I think I had Yahoo page or whatever, like the non-Facebook thing. Is that what Google Plus was? Yeah.
So Google Plus was Facebook's. Google's Facebook, and
Which we should explain. Was this because you were not allowed to have a Facebook?
oh.
Because that's why
I think
everybody that I knew.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's because the vibe was Facebook's bad, and if you've got it, you can't be a pioneer or anything. All these rumors
That was the vibe.
circulating.
That was the vibe. So every person that I knew, who's like a teenager around my age, we all just had like Yahoo page or Google Plus, and it was the same thing as Facebook.
100%.
It was just like only witnesses supporting the platform.
And that was such a weird time. That was like in the crossover period of, that was still the organization of, the website that they had was basically non-existent. Anti-technology, don't bring tablets to meetings.
Yeah, like watchtower.org.
Yes,
and stuff.
it was very different. And it was that really that what we're talking about with social media that kind of was the start then of the transition to more online. The so-called chat room situations are actually okay if it's social media, and all of that kind
Yeah.
of transformed a little bit. Anyway, on G Plus, on Google Plus, I posted I don't even know how many word, like 10-word post. And get ready for this. I don't want to offend anyone, but I said, The Last of Us is the best game I've ever played.
Ooh,
Exclamation mark.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Dangerous post.
And I don't even know if I don't think I had a single witness friend on, like from the congregation on there, but somehow someone found it. And I got pulled into the second school, into this room
Oh, yeah.
with two elders and my father.
No.
And they had printed out this thing that I had posted.
They printed it
Out and they said, what is The Last of Us? And I was like, oh, crap. I was like, it's a game. And they're like, what's this game about? And I was like, oh, it's about like the end
illness?
of the world. Yeah.
It's about an illness that's taken over.
And for those of you that don't know, it's a 18 rated PlayStation game where you go around and there's zombies and you have a gun and you're shooting things. Which is
very, very violent.
It's not allowed.
But it is very good.
It's amazing. I stand by that comment now. But anyway,
Yes.
I got grilled about it and kind of coerced into taking it down, and I can't say things like that, and watch yourself. That was horrific. 'Cause that was the first time I got into like real trouble. Like, this wasn't a kid anymore. I was in trouble in that room with the door locked. It was
big.
a whole thing. The other memory, horrific, much worse for me, but I didn't say it first because I wasn't actually in the room. I'm stood outside the room. Is it's a long story without context, but I had told the elders that I had a problem with masturbation and this whole porn situation, and they were trying. I can't even remember what period this was, but eventually they were like, you have to tell your parents. And I was like, no, this is I'm however old I was, 16 or something, 17, I don't know. I was like, no, I'm an adult, this is my problem, this has nothing to do with them. But they were like, no, we don't care, you tell them or we tell them. And I was like, I'm not telling them because it's nothing to do with them. And so anyway, they said, well, we're going to do it then. And I was like, fine. So after the meeting one day, I saw my parents get pulled into the second school.
No.
The door got locked and no one else is really around. I'm just stood outside waiting. And I wasn't sure because I had said to the elders that I was gay in this whole confession period.
Oh,
but
no.
for whatever reason, I don't know if they didn't. Like, one of them kind of basically said to me that, don't worry about it. It's going to be like a phase or whatever. So I think they didn't really care that much about it.
But one thing at a time with you.
Yeah, pretty much. So I was worried that they were telling my parents this whole thing plus that. So I didn't know when my parents came out what kind of parents they were going to be. If they were going to be angry or... Actually, it was just my dad. And he told my mum. But that was horrific. So I remember the door opening on that second school and like seeing my dad come out and like not really look at me and not sure how to react, and then the drive home and but that stems from that room and just
that's a nightmare,
being locked and the blinds being pulled on the glass between that room and the main room, so you didn't know what was going on. And
right. Oh,
so those were my worst memories. I'm not stuck up enough to say that my worst time in that room was other people's reading.
Boy, oh boy.
Shots
Well,
fired.
I mean, I guess I could talk about a time I was in trouble in the back room if you want me to even the scales.
No, it's fine.
But-
You don't have to best me in or try and best me in every aspect
No,
of
I
life.
can't best you there. That's really
That's what I wanted to
really
hear.
awful.
All of this was to lead you into a state that you would say you cannot beat me in life.
But yeah, you win. That was an amazing
Boom.
experience.
End podcast.
I wanted to just emphasize, though, how weird that is that you, as a 16-year-old, went up to these
Really
older
old, yeah.
adult men who you really don't know particularly well, told them in private about your masturbation habits,
Yeah.
and that was seen as perfectly normal. And then they told your dad about it, and that's it's really creepy. Looking like when you think back on that stuff, like
Yes.
the experience that I was gonna give is similar to that, and it was I was in trouble with a lady, and we had done some things, but the questions that they asked were like very, very
Specific. Of
specific.
course.
And now I look back and I'm like, how did I? I mean, I guess I didn't think it was appropriate at the time. It was very uncomfortable for both of us because we were both in there together.
They pulled you in together.
Yeah, it was
Ooh.
weird.
Yeah, awkward.
Yeah, so I have a man asking me, you know,
Where did you
how
touch
far up
this
did your
woman?
finger go?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who sat next
Yeah.
to you?
yeah,
How
exactly.
uncomfortable.
Pretty uncomfortable. The meeting. Yeah.
What kind of podcast is this? I don't want
I
to be a
don't know.
part of this filth.
I don't know. You started it. Talking about pornography. The Last of Us.
True, it all came from that. They were right. It has brought me down. It's brought down the tone of this podcast.
You see? See how it deteriorates your morals?
I see that now. Yeah, so
Well-
those were pretty crappy memories in the second school.
Those are pretty bad memories. I love that we ended on a negative note.
Yeah. I mean, what?
But
There's not a lot of positivity coming from that room, is there really?
it's true. It's true.
We learnt to read better. Now I'm not so dumb, me.
Also, except you didn't because you wouldn't read books. You obstinately
True, and I kept saying
refused to read.
3.
You couldn't even say your THs.
No.
Sorry, THs. Yeah, so, I mean, what do we want to discuss? We want to talk about next time, or we want to figure that out off air?
Ooh. Let's put ourselves on the spot and just say it right now, shall we?
I kind of liked last time how we stumbled into our next topic of conversation. I mean, because I like the idea of having general conversations about, like, witness culture and things like that, and using that to branch off on tangents. We were talking, before we started recording, about your experience you had recently
I've completely
something
forgotten.
from like a vestigial behavior from being a witness of like
Yes, we were.
kind of censoring yourself in a way, and I thought that might be interesting, like things that
Yeah,
you
little
have
ticks or little
that
things.
we've had to like relearn
Yes, things.
or unlearn.
Let's title it adjustments to.
Adjustments in understanding.
Ooh, yes, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll play that clip of Yoda saying, "You must unlearn what you have learned."
I don't know that quote. What film? Which episode is that?
It's from Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, it's probably. It's good.
One of the more famous ones.
Yeah, it's probably one of my least watched though.
You know what? Probably same, because I always feel like, well, this is an event. I have to set aside some time.
Yeah, and then I feel like I have to watch Return of the Jedi straight after.
Yeah, you can't just end on
Yeah,
a
it's like,
cliffhanger
oh,
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you, buddy.
Okay,
That's why
adjustments
my
and
most watched
understanding.
ones are the first ones.
Well, let's hope that it's not. We don't deviate as much as. I feel like we're getting better every episode.
I don't know. I like the tangents.
Yeah, the commenters
I
will
hope it
tell
get
us
worse.
what they want. We will get tweeted
Yeah.
to death with, "Can you stop talking about your gaming habits and whatever you got
And the
in
answer
trouble
is-
with?"
The answer is, maybe eventually, but we're recording a lot of these in advance.
Yeah.
We'll have no time to implement
Yeah.
your comments or concerns.
When they're like, "Just
Until
get
months
rid of
after the
Ben.
fact.
We hate Ben. No one will know for like a couple of weeks."
Listen, if your criticism is that you don't like the hosts, that's that much.
It's
cannot
valid.
really change.
It's completely valid. We get it,
valid. We hear you. We understand.
but we
We're
just
not moving.
can't do anything about it.
We're staying right here.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And also, how dare you?
The contract is signed.
These are ironclad, binding contracts that we signed with each other in blood transfusions.
We sent our blood across borders. Anyway,
Poked a little hole in the bag and wrote with the blood liquid. Listen, you can follow me on Twitter at altworldly, and YouTube is the same name.
You can tell that you've done this before because I am quickly Googling what my Twitter handle is. Oh, it's just Ben Ford. Nice and easy.
I was like, I'm pretty sure it's just your name.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Ben Ford. How do you spell your last name?
It's weird.
Probably normal,
it's
right?
F-O-A-R-D.
Oh.
Yeah.
F-O-A-R-D.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah, that's my Twitter, and there's probably a channel somewhere that no one's watching. So if you want to go and give that a view, then I would say I appreciate it. It doesn't bother me, but if you're interested, go and watch that. If you're bored, if you're still in the car and you're thinking, no, the podcast is ending and the ambulance hasn't arrived yet, feel free to scooch on over to the channel.
We need some way to end. We need like a final. What would you call that?
The final countdown.
We need a final countdown.
Yeah, I don't really.
And remember, as always, to give us your money and to watch our channels.
The problem with second school is it's like SS, and that's like a whole thing with.
Yeah, that's true. Your
that.
reward for listening is one more day of everlasting life.
Oh, I actually like that.
Love
one.
that.
That's quite a good one. Yeah. I'm happy with
like
that
little.
Do you want
joke.
to? Should we lock that in?
Yes, and you know what we can do is we can award listeners
With
who
extra.
maybe review us on
Yes.
iTunes, or they comment, or follow us and subscribe.
They can get more days.
So we don't have any listeners yet because we don't have any listeners because we haven't released it.
But I like the positivity. You added a yet there. As if someone will listen. And I like that kind of positivity.
We may just be exchanging
Hopeful positivity.
listener of the week with ourselves.
We'll just pretend.
So let me be the first to say, Ben, thank you for supporting the podcast.
Jake, it was a pleasure. Thank you for supporting the podcast with your comments and views.
Yes. Thank you for being, a guest on the show today.
Thank you for being a host on the show today.
Oh, thank you. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to demote you to guest and to promote myself.
Even though it was my idea,
host.
but I'm.
It was your idea. The name, absolutely everything is your idea.
I think the logo, if we stick to it, even.
Absolutely, the logo.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I've really done a lot of the work, but
you're a great guest. We love having you on.
Yeah, I'll try and be on next
I'm sure
time.
we'll get you on. I'm sure we'll get you on sometime. Promises. All right.
Cool. Then thanks for the extra
bye.
day.
Listen, Ben came at me with some really negative energy this morning, and I'm just trying to
rebuff it.
Match it. You know what, though? We shouldn't be negative because we're both riding high off of the energy of Spider-Man No Way Home.
That's absolutely true. I am a little bit
to
disappointed
date the podcast
that that this is like a JW podcast and not a Marvel one.
Not an SM podcast. Spider-Man.
Oh, I see. I was like, damn, I'm already out. I don't know what that is.
SMNWH.
These are all some weird terminology I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, the famous abbreviation the kids use, SM.
I'll use that at uni now. Hey guys, you see SM?
Yeah, they'll love that. Well, that was a cool abbreviation at uni.
Yeah.
We call it Versity in the United States. We call it Versity.
No, you don't.
No, we don't.
I was like, what? Blew my mind. Versity.
Yeah, we call going to the gym, going to the nasium.
Oh, wow. That's, that...
We call going to the cafeteria, going to the teria. Yeah.
Give me another example.
Yeah, okay, so when we see Iron Man, we just call it man.
Oh, I see. Hey, Mom, it's Man.
Did you see Man 3? With the Durin as the villain?